Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday evening at 11:15 p.m. East African time. That I do come to you, that I do return to your screens for the first time since Saturday night. I remember on Sundays we do not do our weekly morning broadcast, as the case is always between Monday to Saturday, with the broadcast coming as early as 9 a.m. or 9:30 between Monday to Friday, while on Saturday we tend to come at around 11 a.m. or 10:30 depending on circumstances. But yeah, for our new community subscribers, thank you so much for choosing to be part of the Football Tribe UG channel. I hope you do enjoy your stay here with us. I hope you continue to like what we do, continue watching. Do let us know down in the comment section what your views are, in case you have departing opinions, in case you agree, And yeah, it's been so far a fruitful weekend, depending on which side of the aisle you fall. But if you're a Manchester City fan, you will feel let down by the circumstances of this weekend. And if you are an Aston Villa fan, then you're definitely in agony, because things have not really gone down to perfection this weekend, as Aston Villa stumbled against a 10-man Brentford, whereas Manchester City conceded a 2-0 lead to share the spoils with Tottenham Hotspurs in their game, later on. Liverpool, of course, close to victory yesterday. We spoke about that game as they thrashed Newcastle by 4-1, while Arsenal also emerged victorious in their trip to Elland Road. Real Madrid had to leave it late, thanks to a penalty by Kylian Mbappe to win it by 2-1, I think, earlier on against, was it Rayo Vallecano? In their game earlier on today. So it's not been an easy weekend. It's been one of those difficult weekends, depending on what side of the aisle you are. So anyways, today, again, we'll be looking into what transpired throughout the course of the weekend, and we will start a conversation, of course, with those stumbles for Aston Villa and Manchester City that seem to be huge favors for Arsenal, given how results had gone the previous weekend, where Aston Villa and Manchester City both won to reduce the deficit of of 7 points just to 4, following Arsenal's 3-2 loss to Manchester United. So really, it almost looks like we are back to square one, or where we were a weekend earlier. Only that Manchester City at least still have that gap reduced by a point. So that means with match day 24 almost gone, because we still have one game left to play, and that will be on Monday Night Football when Sunderland take on Burnley, I think. So yeah, we still have that one game to go, but that essentially will mean that we're left with 14 games to the end of this Premier League campaign. Somebody was asking me yesterday, actually not yesterday, today. I was part of a TikTok forum by the renowned Aldrin Subuga Senior, and he posed the question to us. To us who are part of that forum, among other panelists. And he said, what do you think? And he highlighted a number of games that Arsenal still have to play. And you'll forgive me if you feel that we constantly discuss Arsenal, because they are at the summit of the Premier League table, and by extension, at the summit of the UEFA Champions League table. So believe me, they are always making the news, either for the good reasons or for the bad reasons, depending on where you're standing. So he posed a question about looking into in insight about some of their remaining games, and he highlighted that they have a game against Chelsea, they still have to play Man City, they still have to play Everton, they still have to play a difficult opponent like Newcastle, and things like that. And he was asking, in which of those games do you think they will drop points? And I said, I cannot tell you in which game they will drop points, but one thing I can tell you is that Arsenal cannot afford to lose more than 3 fixtures in the remaining 14 fixtures. So that's what I said, and I still hold by that statement, because by the look of things, while Manchester City need to be almost perfect to sort of beat them, it's not to say that this season has not been without its stumbles. Oh yeah, Pranav says, yo, Pranav, where are you joining us from? Are you from India? the name Pranav sounds as though it's from that origin. But for those of you that are just joining us, welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is my name, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 20 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. And we are going to be reviewing what did transpire today in the Premier League on Match Day 24, in continuation to what transpired yesterday. For those of you that were part of our evening broadcast or late night broadcast yesterday, we did discuss the occurrences of yesterday. But because what occurred today has implications on what happened yesterday, is why we keep switching back and forth and having to revisit what we could pass for yesterday's news. But before I get the conversation in that direction, you'll allow me check something out. I need to just to be sure that everything checks out. I think our audios are okay, guys. Do let me know if you feel that our audio production is wanting and that there are certain things that you'd want us to correct. So yeah, just put down in the comment section in case you're having issues hearing me, and then I'll be able to rectify that, should that be the feeling. Anyways, like I said, the weekend kicked off with 3 games today that kicked off at 5 p.m. Manchester United grinding it out against Fulham to win that game by 3-2. We'll get into that. Then there were Spurs shared at Nottingham Forest Stadium, where Crystal Palace held them to a 1-goal draw. I think Nottingham Forest finishing that game, I think, with a manless. And then, of course, so then Aston Villa losing to Brentford, and then subsequently to wrap things up was Manchester City drawing against Tottenham Hotspurs on Match Day 24. So where do we start with? Let's start out with Aston Villa. I mean, I for one, I predicted that Aston Villa would win the game by 2-1. Never did I envision Aston Villa losing. More so, bearing in mind that they were at home, because they just do not lose that many games at home. Do you give betting tips? Ziwa, I wouldn't qualify them for betting tips. I'd qualify them for predictions. Because I don't know. Maybe the two have some similarity. The reason as to why I say predictions is because you can predict one thing and get it another way. But yeah, as our scorecard shows from yesterday, we had a perfect score prediction for the Brighton game against Everton, a 1-1 draw. We had the win for Liverpool. We had the win for Arsenal, although they were not perfect scores. And then we were let down in one of those fixtures. By the way, was it just one? I think just one fixture from yesterday. I stand to be corrected. Yes, I think we had a win for Bournemouth. Yes. Although my prediction had been a 1-0 victory, they won that game by 2-0. We had a win for Chelsea, even though they had to fight their way back. So for yesterday, we did well. But contrary to that, today we did poorly. We only got I think the Man United game right for that win. I thought City would win. I thought Villa would win, and they all did not win. I thought Nottingham Forest would beat Crystal Palace. In any case, for those of you that were part of our broadcast in the preview, will remember that my prediction had been a 2-0 victory for Nottingham Forest, but that wasn't the case. So yeah, I can't say I give betting tips. I simply say I give my predictions, and I let you decide, you who places the bets, to see what to take and what you think would work in your favor there. So we do have sort of a prediction contest. It's a game that we started this weekend when we're doing our previews for all Premier League games. I and people like Pedri, Africa Will Never Unite. When I say that, that's a member on the channel who we make predictions. And if you have a perfect score, you're awarded 3 points. If you have a win or a draw, regardless of what the scoreline is, then you get 2 points, and any other result other than those, you do not get any single point. So basically, that's what it is. So Ziwa, I hope that Ziwa Ronald, I hope that answers your question. Ricardo Moulton is back with us. Hi, Ricardo. I hope you're good. It's a pleasure to see you around. Always nice to see people returning to the channel that have been here before. But I hope you're okay over there. Anyways, like I was saying, I did not envision Brentford beating up against Aston Villa, but of course, you always leave that bit of leeway to know that any result is possible to happen in the Premier League. Okay, bro, it is your friend from Jamaica. Yes, Ricardo Moulton from Jamaica. How is Jamaica? I hope it's good over there in the. Is Jamaica an island over there? Because you guys seem to be having many beaches, so perhaps that's the case. So Dango Ouattara's goal in the first minute of stoppage time of the first half was enough to win all 3 points for Keith Andrews. Kevin Shada was shown a straight red card in that game. I did not watch the game, so I'll simply be giving you what the result was and some of the key observations from that game based on the few highlights that I've been able to glimpse myself onto. Oh, okay, Ricardo, thank you for emphasizing that. So then, I mean, just about 4 minutes after they had been reduced to 10 men, that's when Dango Ouattara scores to give Brentford the lead. And it wasn't an easy game because either way, Aston Villa dominated the key affairs of the game, but Brentford just held their foot, including Tammy Abraham scoring what he thought was the perfect return to the Premier League, and then it just did not work out because the goal was ruled out. I do not know particularly why, but like I said, I did not watch the actual game. But Aston Villa had a 2.13 XG, 72% of ball possession, 20 shots on goal, but only 5 were on target, compared to Brentford's 2. Big chances created were 1-1, 12 corners for Aston Villa and only 1 for Brentford. I mean, it's completely understandable considering that Brentford had to play with 10 men for the entirety of the second half. And football can be a cruel sport sometimes, because explain to me how then you go and get a result away at Villa Park when you're down to 10 men for a team that is a title contender. I've said this before and I'll repeat it again without any fear of contradiction, that Aston Villa are a title contender this season. Whether you believe that they will eventually win it or not, that is besides the point. By the virtue of their own position on the Premier League table is what qualifies them to be title contenders. Meanwhile, I've been following up on the updates from the game between PSG and Strasbourg over there in the French League One, and that game is 1-1 after about 42 minutes are played in that game. So for those of you that are interested in following those events, you can go and take a look at it there. It's ongoing. One of the games that happening at the moment. Juventus, I think, are up against Parma in the Italian Serie A, in case you also want to watch that one or keep your mind abreast to what is happening over there. So, but like I said, it's the nature of football. I mean, if we're talking about title contenders losing, Arsenal had been winless in 3 games until they beat Leeds United yesterday, having taken 2 goalless draws against Liverpool and Nottingham Forest before losing to Man United. Look at Manchester City. In their last 6 games, I think in the Premier League, they've only won 1 fixture, and that was their 2-0 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So somewhere along the way, they had I think 3 consecutive draws. They had a victory against Wolves. Sorry, they had a loss against Manchester United. Then they had a draw. Sorry. They had 3 consecutive draws against Chelsea, Brighton, and Sunderland. Then lost to Man United by 2-0, and then 1 against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and now they've just drawn against Aston Villa. So when we talk about title contenders, it's not like Aston Villa are the only ones that have slipped in recent times, or as though they are the only ones that will continue to slip for the remaining 14 games. This season has been as unpredictable as you would have it, because on one day, I think Manchester United are the only team currently in the Premier League with 3 consecutive wins. In other words, they are the most on-form team in the Premier League. And that is all thanks to one person, Michael Carrick. So for Aston Villa to drop points against Brentford, whereas it's a huge disappointment, it's not too remote to think that they can actually lose at home, even though they've not been losing so many games at home. I remember they've now lost, I think, 3 games at home. They lost against Crystal Palace. That was earlier on in the season. Then they lost to Everton by 0-0, and now they've lost to Brentford by a similar scoreline. So really, Ricardo says it is 3:30 p.m. in Jamaica in the afternoon. Wow. For us, it is 11:30 p.m. in the night. So that means we are only 30 minutes away from Monday or from midnight. So I think thank you for highlighting that timeline for us to be in the know of what the time zone is there. Oh, is that a second goal for PSG or it's just a highlight of the first? I think a highlight of the first. So and by the way, it doesn't get any easier because when you look around, I think Aston Villa, their next game is going to be against Bournemouth. Really, Arsenal will be at home to Sunderland, and we know how Sunderland have been really, really difficult for the big boys this season, and not just the big boys, but have been a bit of a hard nut to crack. So that's how Aston Villa ended up dropping all points, 3 points. But yeah, what's happened to Aston Villa, what I was trying to stress is that it's not only unique to them because we've seen all Premier League title contenders slip at different intervals this season, and particularly in the most recent phase of, I think when you look at the last 5-6 games recently, all of them have literally slipped up. All of them have literally slipped up in one way or the other. Each of them has failed to capitalize on the weakness or on the shortfalls of the other. We saw it against Arsenal in that draw against Liverpool, against Nottingham Forest. They failed to capitalize on that, and later on, before losing to Man United. Manchester City in the draws against Brighton, against Sunderland, against Chelsea, and in their draw against Spurs today, they lost to United and all that kind of thing. So really, it's not really strange that that is happened. So anyways, we'll leave the conversation about Aston Villa at that and move on to the other game that was played at 5 p.m. East African time, and that was the 1-1 draw between Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest, with Nottingham Forest going ahead through Morgan Gibbs-White's strike in the 50th minute of the game, while Crystal Palace needed a penalty in the 2nd minute of stoppage time of the first half to restore parity when Ismail Sarr stepped up from the penalty spot and converted to make it 1-1. It is a game that ended with Williams being shown matching orders or being given a red card in that one. I mean, I think this is Nico Williams. Yes, Nico Williams, the left back for Nottingham Forest. Now, I don't know what's happened with Nottingham Forest, but if there's one team that has a plethora of talent within their squad, it has to be Nottingham Forest. Has to be one of those because of how they behaved in the transfer window. Not too far back, we're hearing reports that Edu Gaspar Dawoodi's job was under scrutiny or was on the line as far as being head of football at Nottingham Forest or at Evangelis Marinakis' clubs is, because they've recruited so many players. They were one of the highest spenders in the transfer window in the summer when they spent north of £200 million. But it's all been what? Vanity. It's not worked out the way they would have hoped it would. In any case, majority of the players that start in that Nottingham Forest team today were players that were there last season. When you look at players like Matt Sells, Moriro, Nikol Milenkovic, Ola Aina, Nico Williams, Elliot Anderson, Ibrahim Sangare in that midfield, Morgan Gibbs-White as their number 10 or playmaker, Dominguez, Nicolas Dominguez, Calum Hudson-Odoi. I mean, so, but unfortunately for them, sometimes life doesn't give you what you want. And they were playing up against a Nottingham Forest side, Crystal Palace side, that didn't even have a striker on the pitch because they had Jeremy Pino playing as the first nine with Brian Johnson and Ismail Sarr coming in behind them. I told one of the reasons as to why my prediction was that Nottingham Forest would win the game by 2-0 was I figured Crystal Palace were going to miss Adam Watton in that midfield because he got a red card in their loss to Chelsea. And in any case, beyond that, they've not been performing well in like about the last 10 or 11 games in the Premier League. So really, it was only sort of plausible that I thought that Nottingham Forest could win the game, given where they stand substantively on the Premier League log, that they are still battling against relegation, even though now they find themselves 6 points ahead of an 18th placed West Ham United. So it is what it is. Anyways, so we will move on then to the Man United game. Now, very interesting fixture. Man United going into a 2-0 lead. Fulham coming from 2 goals down to restore parity. And then Benjamin Sesko deciding to kill the game for Man United to win them all 3 points. As perhaps, I wouldn't say they deserve the points, but they did work for it. And in similar fashion, like we saw the previous weekend, that as soon as they conceded, I don't know, and this gives me the impression that one, it's either a mentality issue or an awareness of what happens with an opponent as soon as they've scored. Usually, once a team scores, in that first 1 to 3 minutes, usually there's that lapse in concentration. And that lapse in concentration has everything to do with being in that celebratory mode. Hi, Pedri. How are you doing, my brother? Always a pleasure to see you around. I hope you're doing well. How did you do for your predictions today? I got 0 right scores today. Same applies to me, I think. I don't think any of us got any perfect score predictions today. I think the only thing I may have gotten right was the victory for Man United, but not still a perfect score. So, but yeah, because I had not envisioned that loss for Aston Villa. Anyways, so initially, who was the center referee? I'm trying to remember his name. Anyways, away from the center referee, United thought they had won a penalty for a foul on Matheus Cunha in the area. But upon review, that was reduced to a free kick on the edge of the area. Bruno Fernandes floats it in as he's done on numerous occasions. Fulham are caught in a deep slumber. Casemiro runs in behind and then he scores from the header. Brilliant goal to give Manchester United the lead. Then goes and they went into halftime with that 1-0 lead. Going into the second half, goal scorer turned provider when he provided the assist for Matheus Cunha in a quick one take. I mean, the way he strikes that ball with precision, with power to beat Bernard Leno in goal was impressive to watch. Although, one, if you're being too critical or nitpicking, you could say Bernard Leno ought to have done better in that position because he was close to the near post where the ball is struck. But it's almost like, you know how you imagine somebody throws a cricket ball to you or a baseball ball to you, and you know you want to catch it, but you also know the strength and pace at which it is being thrown, that it has the potential of harming you. So it's more like you're ducking it, but also wanting to catch it at the same time. That's what it felt for Bernard Leno in that moment. Pedri says, I got a victory for Man United, and that's it. I put City win, Palace win, Villa win, all didn't happen. And this is the Premier League, my friend. Indeed. Exactly. Even me too. I got only Man United correct for the win because I thought City would win by 2-1. That wasn't the case. I thought Palace would lose by 2-0. That wasn't the case. I thought Villa would win by 2-1, but that wasn't the case. And indeed, that's the nature of the Premier League. Very unpredictable. I don't know if you had the chance to read some of the comments above, but Aziwa was asking me earlier on whether I give betting tips, and I was enlightening him that I do not give them as betting tips. I simply give my predictions, and those that are interested in betting do as they see fit or as they please. But yesterday, I think yesterday I got all predictions right, and not perfect scores, but all predictions were correct yesterday. So yeah, we will tally at the end of match day 24, and that's ending tomorrow when Sunderland take on Burnley. I don't remember what your prediction was, but particularly if to reference on my notes here in regards to my prediction, because I took notes or note of that prediction. I think I went for a 2-2 draw between Sunderland and Burnley, but we'll get to that. Let's wrap up with the conversation about Manchester United. You say, do not go that way, people. It is the wrong decision. This is an unpredictable sport. Please avoid it. I mean, for you, you're going for. I went for 2-0 Sunderland. Okay. I for one, I cannot. I cannot. I don't discourage people from betting. I simply tell them to do it responsibly. In betting, there's that sort of unwritten rule. Stake what won't hurt you when you lose it, because the chances of you winning are equivalent to those of you losing. So it's like the word is, it's a gamble. It's a 50-50. You either win or you lose. There's no middle line. It's just that. So yeah. And then after going 2-0 down, that's when Fulham mounted a comeback. They mounted a comeback, and they thought it had come their way in the 65th minute when Cuenca scored to pull one back for Fulham, but that goal was ruled out by VAR for, I think, offside. And then in the 85th minute, Harry Maguire, with what appeared to be a dangerous tackle, although the penalty itself was subjective, if the referee hadn't given it, I do not think many people would have contested it, because by the time he makes the actual tackle, Raul Jimenez has already played that ball into Sene Lomans. So, but because VR deemed that it wasn't a clear and obvious error, that it was a bit subjective, they decided to let it fly, and Raul Jimenez took his penalty and converted from the penalty spot in the 85th minute to pull one back for Fulham. And we thought, looks like a comeback is on for Fulham. And indeed it was on, because thanks to an assist by Ryan Sessegnon, Kevin, I mean, what a brilliant strike from Kevin to beat Sene Lomans in goal, to restore parity there in the first minute of stoppage time. 9 minutes, I think, had been added, in that game. Now, they score, and it's 2-2. And this is what I was saying. When you go back to the previous weekend, I think Arsenal score an equalizer in the 84th minute. And about 3 minutes later, they are conceding what was the third goal, and which turned out to be the match winner by Matthias Cunha. And in this similar fashion, Fulham have scored an equalizer in the first minute of stoppage time. And 3 minutes later, Benjamin Sesko is scoring to win it for Man United by 3-2. Bruno Fernandes providing the assist. I mean, the amount of time and space that Benjamin Sesko was accommodated in the area to bring down the ball and make the turn and sort of use a defender or two, Fulham defenders, as sort of his shadows to put that ball beyond the reach of Bernard Leno, who hardly literally moved, was impressive to watch. But it almost felt suspect that they were almost caught frozen. And this is what I said. It's either ingenious for Man United to know that once an opponent scores against you, the next 2-3 minutes, they're going to have a lapse in concentration, because perhaps they are still in that celebratory mood. And why? Because in both incidences, when you look at the game for Arsenal and for the game for Fulham, both let goes for the two sides had been equalizers. So in a way, perhaps mentally, Fulham were thinking, we've rescued a point. Let's fight for this one. But before they could sort of have themselves settled back really in the game, they were penalized. And Benjamin Sesko, I think, extending his individual tally to, I think, 5 goals now in the Premier League this season, squad. You say people lose their families and houses from this. It always starts by a little. When you win, you get excited and you go big. And then inevitably, you lose everything in life. People avoid this evil path. That's the word of advice. from Pedri saying, stay away from betting if you can. People lose their entire life savings. People have lost houses. People have lost families to eat. You know, one would say one man's meat is another one's poison. But like I said, responsibly. I do not want to draw comparisons. I don't want to say it's like drinking, because even when you're drinking, they tell you drink responsibly. For those of you guys that drink. So anyways, we'll leave the betting topic to that side. But yeah, that was the result. Key takeaways from that particular result. I thought Man United were impressive. They really, really looked good. Matas Cunha, I thought was sharp. Brandon Mbeumo wasn't as sharp. He had his couple of moments here and there, which did not pan out. But Fulham had a better XG of 1.97 compared to United's 1.74. Fulham had a total of 14 shots on goal compared to United's 13. All had 6 shots on target. Now, both Sonny Lomans had 4 saves, while Bernardino had 3. So, anyways, really, people have no food to eat in life. Why waste money? Give it to charity. Pedri, I do not think the objective of those that bet is to waste money. The objective is to make money. Unfortunately, they lose. So, but I understand where you're coming from on that. Personally, I do not remember the last time I placed a bet. Most probably around 2014 or 2013, thereabout. So it's been more than a decade. I kid you not. Anyways, so yeah, United weren't as good as they were the previous weekend. Fulham gave them a run for their money. But because, in a way, Fulham defended poorly, those lapses in concentration is what United punished. And it's very typical of United to punish mistakes. And it is very typical of modern day football in the Premier League, or even in the UEFA Champions League, or any other league you may go into. Mistakes will always be punished. That small lapse in concentration is where you'll get punished. And the case wasn't any different from Man United. Just like it wasn't any different for Manchester City in the late kickoff when they shared the spoils in a 2-2 draw against Tottenham Hotspur. Manchester City taking a 2-0 lead through Ryan Cherki and Antoine Semenyo. Ryan Cherki having a brilliant season in his debut campaign with Manchester City. Really, Antoine Semenyo is continuing on his Premier League legacy with where he left off with AFC Bournemouth, continuing that at Man City, because he scored another brilliant goal today, as did Ryan Cherki, with that low shot of strike to beat Guillermo Vicario in goal, to give Manchester City, of course, goals coming in the 11th minute and the 44th minute, respectively, to give Man City a 2-0 lead going into halftime. You're a good man, Mr. Tribe. You're doing the right thing. I remember someone betted for Inter to win Champions League final versus PSG. He bet $1,000 because everyone was sure Inter will win, and he only gained $10. Wow. How did he even gain $10? Because anyway, I understand that betting rules are applied differently in different countries, because sometimes you're given a little bit back of your stake in some countries. Now, in my own country, why I said it's a win or lose situation is you either win or you lose. There's no in between. So if you stake $1,000, you either win what the win amount was, or you lose the entirety of the $1,000. The only way you can salvage, there's something they call I don't know the exact term for it. It's like an early withdrawal. For example, if a game is going, for example, let's say if today you bet on Tottenham Hotspur to beat up against Manchester City, and maybe as soon as they conceded, or when the game went into halftime, let's say if you bet $1,000, and let's say you are bound to win, let's say $2,500 in return if Tottenham had won the game. At halftime, when they are losing by 2-0, the betting company could say, you can pull out of this bet and we'll give you $50. So that's the only way you can salvage a little bit of what you staked. That's the only way, Anyways, okay, ain't talking to you. Shh. No. I leave Pedri. Don't mind Ricardo. Don't mind Ricardo. Ricardo is our friend from Jamaica, where it is 10 minutes to 4 p.m. in Jamaica. There. Anyways, back to the game itself. Manchester City collapsing. Now, this was a game of two halves. Man City did not have a shot on target in the entire second half. It was a game of two halves, with Man City taking the first, very dominant on the ball, very dominant in possession and everything they did, and they scored 2 goals. In the second half, they did not have a sniff. Tottenham sort of grew back into the game, and in the 53rd minute, Dominic Solanke scored the first goal to pull one back, and in the 70th minute, he scored the equalizer. Now, for those of you that want a brilliant goal, Dominic Solanke's equalizer comes just as brilliant. I can only draw comparisons to a goal scored by Henrik Mkhitaryan in the Premier League. I do not remember against which opponent. And then Olivier Giroud against, was it Crystal Palace? The scorpion kick. So basically, he did a scorpion kick for that equalizer. Brilliant goal to watch, really, really. And I mean, Dominic Solanke is a player that Tottenham Hotspur have missed for a large chunk of this season because he had been out through injury. And you remember he scored in their 2-0 victory against Eintracht Frankfurt. So he's come back from injury and he's already popped up with goals here and there. And he had never scored against Manchester City in his Premier League career until today, and he scored a brace. So despite Manchester City having majority of possession to the tune of 61%, an XG of 1.99 compared to Spurs Tottenham's 0.97. They had 15 shots on goal, only 3 on target. Spurs had 12, they had 6 on target. Big chances created were 1 each, and Gianluigi Donnarumma made 4 saves in that game, really. So that sort of paints for you the picture that I'm trying to tell you about, that it was a game of two halves, with Manchester City doing all the right things in the first half and then doing all the wrong things in the second half. Now, the first goal that Tottenham Hotspur scored, Dominic Solanke appears to have fouled Mark Cahill. In fact, that goal earlier on had been indicated as an own goal by Mark Cahill. Now, because Dominic Solanke, in an attempt to score, he kicks the ball through. He kicks the ball, but after kicking Mark Cahill's ankle. And I watched that incident, and I said, if the roles had been reversed, that was going to be a penalty. For example, if it was Mark Cahill who kicks Dominic Solanke in the manner that Solanke kicked Mark Cahill, and he doesn't score, one, it will be deemed as denying a goal scoring opportunity. So it would be deemed a foul on Solanke and a penalty would have been awarded. But now that it was the reverse, how come that defenders do not get these kinds of decisions? I've always wondered to myself, because here's what happens. Until recently, the rule hadn't been that if you handle the ball at any one point in the process of scoring, the goal is definitely cancelled. Ideally, you had that if the ball hits if the defender handles the ball in the area, it's a penalty. But if a goal scorer handles the ball before scoring, it wasn't a foul. So I think in this particular case, there are certain fouls that are given against defenders, and yet when committed by strikers in attempt to score, they're not given as fouls. Why is that the case? There's another game. Well, was it today or yesterday, in which a whisker, and I mean literally your eyelashes, were given as an offside? And I think to myself, where is the game headed? Where is the game headed? Does it have to be that bad? And for me, every time VAR takes ages to make a decision, that for me is not a clear and obvious error. Because if it was a clear and obvious error, then definitely you'd have seen it as soon as possible. How many times have we seen referees get sent to the pitch side monitor and do not spend even half a minute? Gets there 10, 15 seconds, at most 25, and is seen enough to make a decision. But then VR sometimes will take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, deciding whether it's an offside or not, deciding whether it's a foul or not. By the time it takes you that long, that means you're having a full-blown debate. It's subjective. Those things. Oh, it's a case of a glass being half full or half empty. Is it half full or half empty? Kind of, So, but it is what it is. That did transpire, but yeah, that was the weekend for the Premier League. They are wrapping things up, and Pep Guardiola made some of the changes that he thought could impact the game. I thought he made them really late, bringing on Phil Foden, bringing on Omar Mamosh to try and salvage the game. But Tottenham did not relent. And guess what? Their next fixture in the Premier League is going to be against Liverpool. And Pedri, I hope you're ready for the next weekend's predictions. But because next weekend on Super Sunday at 7:30 p.m., Liverpool will be up against Manchester City. Yep, you heard it here first. Match day 24 is Liverpool versus Man City. But anyways, the implications of those results mean that Arsenal remain at the summit, of course, as were expected to be, with 53 points. That means they extend the point lead from a mere 4 points to 6, because Man City at 47 points. Aston Villa still third with 46 points. Man United fourth, only 5 points behind Aston Villa. Chelsea come fifth with 40 points. Liverpool sixth with 39 points. Brentford seventh with 36 points. Fulham in eighth place with 34 points as a ninth placed Everton. Newcastle 33 points in 10th place, while Sunderland 11th with 33 points. 12th is FC Bournemouth with 33 points. Brighton and Hove Albion at 31 points in 13th place. Tottenham Hotspurs with 29 points, and Crystal Palace with 29 points in 14th and 15th places respectively. Leeds United with 26 points in 16th place, 17th, and Nottingham Forest with a similar number of points. Released West Ham United with 20 points, Burnley 15, and Wolverhampton Wanderers 8 from the bottom 3. Now, speaking about Tottenham Hotspurs, first of all, their fans would have been extremely happy if they lost today, because they wanted to do Man City a favor in an attempt to curtail Arsenal's title-winning chances, which I find very odd. Now, I understand the beef, the rivalry, the history that is between the two sides, between Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspurs. But to the extent of you wishing your already struggling team to lose the game so that your day's opponent gets an advantage over your historical rival, I find that odd. Do you guys know Jamie O'Hara is a He's a Tottenham diehard. Recently, I was watching him I think he was on radio, and he was being asked, would you take it if it meant that Tottenham win the UEFA Champions League, but they get relegated? And among the two questions he asked, and first of which was, what does that mean about Arsenal? Do Arsenal still win the league? And I'm thinking to myself, what does Arsenal have to do with anything? The question is about, would you take it if Tottenham win the UEFA Champions League, but then they get relegated? That they have to play a Wrexham, they have to play a Coventry City, they have to play Southampton, a Leicester City, and then go and rub shoulders with Bayern Munich, with Real Madrid, with Barcelona in midweek. And he took a long think about it. And he said, yeah, nobody remembers that you had the season in the championship. Everybody will remember that you won the UEFA Champions League. Now, on that part, he's correct. At least that's his opinion, to say he would take the UEFA Champions League title, even though it meant that they get relegated. But the mere fact that he had to somehow invoke Arsenal into the conversation tells me everything I need to know about Tottenham Hotspur fans. And the mere fact that they even considered that losing should be a possibility, because it gives it sort of gives it would deny Arsenal possibly the opportunity to win a Premier League title. That I wouldn't have. If you ask me, if I'm in Tottenham's shoes and we are 14th on the Premier League table with 29 points, knowing that if we win that game, we go to 32 points, which propels me to 13th place. Why not take a win? I'll take a win. Because then that means, because they are only 7 points below 7th place. 7 points is essentially 3 games. Mathematically, I'm thinking, how do I climb up the table? Not whether I should lose this one so that my rival, you could lose to Tottenham Hotspurs, you could lose to Manchester City, and Arsenal still win anyway, So that sort of mentality is really, really wrong to have. Jamie O'Hara is one of those who will never be objective when it gets to Arsenal. Wasn't he one time in Arsenal's academy? I'm not sure whether he was in Arsenal's academy, but I understand the rivalry where he comes from and all that. That is not really objective about Arsenal. I get that part. But the question that was posed to him, and him having to have a long think about it, and then having to bring Arsenal in the conversation that were nowhere near the conversation, because the question was simple. Would you take winning the UEFA Champions League this season and get relegated from the Premier League to the Championship? It's a yes or no. Or yes, I will take the UEFA Champions League and get relegated. But then somehow, in his twisted mind, like a typical Tottenham Hotspur fan, he's thinking, what then happens to Arsenal if we are going to go through that? And I'm thinking to myself, really? How do you be preoccupied by a team that is 13 places above you? I just don't know. Anyway, because for Tottenham, any Premier League table finish above 17th place, actually, above 17th place is going to be a step forward. It's going to be an improvement from last season. But they are really, really struggling. Only 7 wins, 8 draws, 9 losses this campaign. So, it's a bit of a hard one. But it is what it is. We'll leave that at that. Speaking of the title or the Premier League table leaders, it is feared that Mikel Merino is set to be out for a reasonable period of time with a foot injury. And according to multiple reports, it is being suggested that Arsenal could scramble around in the transfer window, in the market, for a player, a midfielder, on loan to bolster their midfield. Now, we've appraised Arsenal throughout the entire season for having that squad depth, for having literally a replacement in every position. Now, I don't know if this is because they've already sent out Ethan Wanyeri out on loan, or because they think it leaves them short on numbers, which of course it does. But I mean, maybe they are trying to plan for the unthinkable, or I'm just being, I don't know, overreaching. Not overreaching. Maybe I'm trying to be too open-minded. But multiple reports are suggesting that Arsenal could source for a midfielder, at least on loan, until the end of the season. And we all know that Arsenal fans seem to have a love affair with Ruben Neves of Al Hilal. I do not know if they can land his services, even if it is on loan, for the remainder of the season. But if they were, it would actually be a scoop. You say he was actually in Arsenal's academy till 17 when he turned down a professional contract. Was he even worth a professional contract? Because he doesn't seem too professional. Anyways, jokes aside, those things happen. Perhaps it turned out to be a Chido Martin Obi. No offense to Chido Martin Obi. You know, Chido Martin Obi was an academy player at Arsenal, and he was offered a contract and he refused to sign it. And he decided to leave and go to Man United, thinking that he was going to get the chance. In a Man United side that already had Rasmus Højlund, Joshua Zirkzee. Then they went and piled on Benjamin Sesko before sending out Rasmus Højlund out on loan. And the possibility of him even playing in that first team became thinner and thinner. Of course, he had some games played in there. But I have a feeling, and this is based on what I've seen over the years, if he had stayed at Arsenal, he would have had a better chance of playing for the first team than he had at Man United. Because look at Arsenal last season. They lost all their strikers and they didn't have anybody. They had to play there Mikel Merino, who literally had no substitute. So if he had stayed, maybe he plays a couple of games, scores maybe 3 or 4, 5 games, then it catches the attention of a championship team that takes him out on loan, gets consistent game time, and builds his career. I hope it doesn't end up to be a Chuba Akpom, but he turns out to be a good player, a reliable player. Look at Eddie Nketiah. Yes, he wasn't given the biggest of chances, but he had his chance as an academic graduate. Look at Florian Balogun. He did not have too many chances. He had a few, and then he was sent out on loan, where it worked out for him at times, and then he signed for Monaco. And, so really, sometimes, it solidifies to say that the pastures aren't always greener on the other side. Not always. They are not always greener, But yeah, it is what it is. Meanwhile, Strasbourg and PSG still 1-1. After 1 hour of game time played. So, guys, you'll see that replay for Dominic Solanke, the earlier goal that I was talking about, his first goal that he scores against Manchester City. He kicks Mark Gahey and then proceeds through to have a nick on the ball. For me, if it was Mark Gahey kicking Solanke, even though he goes through and gets a nick on the ball, it would have been a foul. So for me, I believe that the rules should be applied equally. That if it would have been a foul against Solanke, it then should be a foul on Mark Gahey. And I'm sure Manchester City fans will agree or will feel hard done by that kind of decision. I seem to remember being in disagreement of this very decision or similar kind of decision. And my school of thought about it then was different. And while the scenario is a little bit similar, I want to draw you to it was a game between Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur. So Mohamed Sissoko has the ball in his sight. He stretches to smack it away, and Sadio Mane snaps into the shot and he sort of places his leg in there as though to win the ball back. And he kicks him, and Liverpool are given a penalty. Now, my argument then was that it wasn't a penalty. Why? Because there's no way Sissoko would have envisioned that Mane was going to put his foot there. Because if Mane is in front of him before he stretches his leg, it's obviously a foul. But Mane is not even in the frame when Sissoko stretches out his leg. So it's an accidental foul, one that is not meant to be a foul, one that you'd have, I don't know, stronger reflex than the blink of an eye for you to even hesitate to fall through with the kick. Joshua says, Nograd, Eze, Havertz, Askeli, Odegaard, Zubimendi, Rice, Dorman think these are enough midfielders, different kind for Merino, but sufficient enough. That's his view. Now, I equally think that even though it's a lengthy injury, it shouldn't be sending Arsenal into panic. But perhaps what could send Arsenal into panic is them getting long-term injuries with multiple players at this stage in the season. We know that Bukayo Saka got injured during the warm-up yesterday prior to the kickoff of the Leeds game, and he was replaced by Noni Madueke. And it appeared to be a hamstring. I do not know with absolute certainty because we are yet to find out the actual extent and concern, the extent of the injury and what the actual concern is. But put that aside, now you add Mikel Merino with his foot injury, and he's set to be out for an extended spell. Obviously, it's not good news. And for me, the question is, which kind of player do you get out on loan that is capable of filling that void that you want to fill? First and foremost, it's not that the players of that quality or caliber are not there. They are there. But wherever they are equally of relevancy or of value to their respective teams where they are playing, especially in the second part of the season, And this is according to Charles Watts about a couple of minutes ago, saying Arsenal confirmed Mikel Merino will have surgery on his foot in the coming days. Club statement, Mikel Merino expected to be out of action for an extended period with the aim of returning to full training before the end of the season. Everyone is fully focused on supporting Mikel to ensure he is back to full fitness as soon as possible. Now, for me, Mikel Merino is a huge loss to Arsenal. Not because he was ever going to play consistently, game in, game out. But one, he's been a very formidable figure in cup competitions. And we know that in cup competitions, that's when you look to rotate your squad. That's when you give your primary squad a bit of rest and give others the kick in terms of extended play. But also, we know that when things are badly off for the Arsenal, he does pop up with the goals, And I think in this campaign, he has had, 4 goals already in the Premier League. He scored against Newcastle, the equalizer. He scored what had been the equalizer against Man United. And I don't remember the other exact 2 games. But so, losing that for a team that has goals distributed all around their squad is not a good thing. And I understand. But the question is, who do you go for? Ruben Neves is in contract negotiations with Al Hilal. I do not know if they will be able to, if they will be open to letting him, join. For him, perhaps it will be a dream move. I find him a very, very good player, box-to-box player, quite energetic, has a Premier League experience, a little bit nasty, doesn't get physically bullied. He has all the qualities that you would want in that kind of box-to-box midfielder. So he ticks so many boxes. Yes, he will contribute a few goals here and there. He has a powerful shot in a free kick and things like that. He has a bit of eye for goal from distance and things like that. But I also resonate with what Joshua says when he highlights. Now, however, like he puts it that they are of course a different kind, but he thinks for him he thinks that those would be sufficient. Mikel, maybe Miles Lewis Kelly. We know him; he's a midfielder, a bit young, still a bit reckless. He's bound to commit errors, and perhaps Arsenal deemed that at this stage in the season, you can't afford mistakes. You can't afford that many errors, That's why you'll find that even in some cup competitions, Mikel Arteta is going to field the best team that he can afford to field. Watch out for the game on Tuesday against Chelsea for the return leg in the EFL Cup, and wait to see. So I do have a feeling that while Kepa Arrizabalaga would have had a good run in, I wouldn't be surprised if he decides it's time to bring in David Raya, So with that sort of spirit or mentality, anything can happen, Anything can happen. Anything can happen, really. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see. I was trying to trust for the starting 11 for that game between Arsenal and Chelsea, what the team sheet looked like in terms of the lineup for that game. Oh, yes, Arrizabalaga was in goal, but like I'm not saying he won't field him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he changed his mind about that. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see when the time comes on Tuesday. But yeah, Merino is quite the player. And like I said, very pivotal in cup competitions. Look at the UEFA Champions League, how he's been utilized. Look at the FA Cup. I think against Portsmouth, he played as the pivot because Christian Nogard was, I think, played as a centre back in that game. So, and he can be effective. He can be effective. He's not fast. He's not so silky or things like that, but he can be a very, very effective player. Anyways, guys, that's the submission for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I thank you so much for always being part of the discussion. We'll, of course, keep our ears and eyes on the chatter to see if Arsenal can find solutions that they feel that they need to find in the market. But by the time that speculation comes out, including from David Austin, stressing it just as much that they are exploring the market to see if they can find a quick fix. Yeah, it sure as well would help. Because he says Arsenal surveying market for optional for a potential loan as a short-term cover for the 29-year-old Spanish international. No guarantee anything materializes before deadline. Remember, the deadline is today or tomorrow, because for us it's already midnight. It's 17 minutes past midnight here, so it's already Monday. So we'll have to wait and see, really, when it comes to that. So we'll have to wait and see whether they can find solutions. But I don't know. What? Of course, Man City can't give you any player. As going to suggest you go to Man City and poke a player. But which player? None will be available to you. Chelsea has so many midfielders. Yes, Arsenal and Chelsea have a good trading relationship. But who? They're not going to give you Andre Santos, no. So it's really, really hard. But maybe Andre Bata will conjure up something. We do not know. Let's wait and see until deadline day. But thank you so much, Mweskwa Joshua, for always choosing to be part of our discussions. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Ricardo Moulton from Jamaica. Thank you so much, every single one of you that has managed to be part of tonight's broadcast. It's been such a fruitful discussion. I doubt Arsenal is signing anyone. Of course, it wasn't always the objective, but when there's that saying of desperate times call for desperate measures. Do you remember a time when Arsenal signed a player called Kim Kalmstrom? He even failed his medical because when he was signed, he was injured. But Arsene Wenger brought him, and I think he played in one or two FA Cup games. Of course, that season, Arsenal, I think it was around 2015, Arsenal went on and won the FA Cup. So he played in a West Bromwich Albion game, I think, and he scored a penalty, if I stand to be corrected. But yeah, that's how bad it was for Arsene Wenger. So you never know. Mikel Arteta may deem the situation as such to warranty that they do everything within their power to bring in someone. Would you go to PSG and get, the Warren Zaire Emery? I don't think they will be languishing him to you. Would you go to Bayern Munich and try to poke a Leon Goretzka, who we all know will be leaving the club at the end of the season and is perhaps destined for a move to Atletico de Madrid, where, by the way, Atletico de Madrid did reach an agreement with Atlanta to sign Ademola Lookman for about 35 million euros plus 5 million euros in expected add-ons. So, that's happening over there. So really, perhaps tomorrow morning we'll have a bite on the transfers as deadline day looms in, or as it will be hours away from that. So yeah, allow me to wish you a blessed night. Let's catch up again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. East African time. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.